morning, this beautiful Thursday morning. And as you always know how we do it here, it is Relationship Clinic. And I am so privileged and honored to have a very, a beautiful, beautiful lady here who's going to be sharing her story on matters physical abuse in marriage, how love just turns to be violent, and also an expert, a doctor, who will be taking us through what is it really that happens in the mind of an abuser? What is it that, you keep holding on to a relationship that is toxic for you? So Dr. will also be here to help us unpack that and know how to navigate, this journey if you find yourself in such space. My name is Sally Limo. Welcome to Relationship Clinic. And remember to talk to us on 20316, which is our SMS number, and 0786-316-316 is our WhatsApp number. Share your compliments, comments, and even ask your questions there. Karibuni sana, my good people.
Thank you.
I'll start with you, June. Please introduce yourself.
All right. June Kate-Reeves,
Yes.
Born again, love the Lord with all my heart. A mother of a cute 10-year-old daughter,
Right.
and I'm a techpreneur, a Kenyan techpreneur.
Welcome.
Thank you.
Dr.
Yeah. Hi, good morning. My name is Moses Masharia. I am a mental wellness expert.
Yes.
Particularly in the area of trauma. So from adverse childhood experiences all the way to post-traumatic stress. And also I get to double up as an employee wellness program specialist. So helping organizations curate employee assistance program for superstar employees. And I am born again, and I am so proud and happy to be in this show and having this conversation. Yeah, so many moja wale serious listeners, and I'm glad today to be putting Jesus in the airwaves.
Fantastic.
Amazing.
Thank you so much, Nakaribu sana. Look at young, beautiful people in Christ. I love this. And I believe you're going to have a great show. So, June, if I may start with you, just to take us through, how was your married life like, or even the relationship with your partner at the time?
So we met in campus. We were very young when we met.
Yeah.
I was 20, he was 21. And they're saying ponyoka na fresha. He ponyokad with me. Yes, so, and we moved in pretty fast. So I joined campus, and then I think after, I didn't even stay long. I was in Kenyatta University. 2008, 2009, we had already started living together.
Okay.
And our relationship began. It went well. I think it's because we were young. We didn't even know what we wanted. What are you doing living together as 20-year-olds?
Yeah.
We didn't know what marriage was per se, because it was a come we stay, basically. Until 5 years later, we had our child, who's the 10-year-old I was talking about. And I think when you grow, and when you're not growing at the same pace, I came to learn that in PMCC at some point, because we also did PMCC. When you're not growing at the same pace, it gets to a point where resentment comes in. And also, I think we did a lot of comparison. So when you're working, and then now you do comparison with other people outside, for example. And so I'd compare, for example, like I'd be like, okay, why isn't my husband doing 1, 2, 3? I see men out here doing 1, 2, 3. So there was a lot of resentment that came about from my side and his side as well.
Yeah.
So, and we also had anger issues. So I think the resentment kind of brought up the anger issues in us. And at some point, after like 6, 7 years, that's when we started physically fighting.
Yeah. So the anger issues are from both sides, you and him?
Yes. It was from both sides. Yeah.
Tari, for the purpose of our listeners and also viewers, what is physical abuse really? Because like there are some communities in the country, in Kenya, that ukichapwa ni mapenzi. But what is physical abuse?
Well, Sally, that's a beautiful question. I would say physical abuse supersedes just what is visible to the eye. It might be emotional. It might be, someone, using words, verbal, over and above. Sometimes it's physical. The moments when you come to work and you have, that black eye, and you say, I had this accident while showering, or, that injured shoulder, and you keep making excuses. So it is more than what is visible. And yes, sometimes it is what is visible. And that's what I would coin as, physical abuse. And for our purpose today, I think, allow me to dwell particularly on abuse, because abuse is broad.
Yeah.
It's broad.
Yeah.
There are people who are seated in a relationship today, but it's, you know, a mental game. They are experiencing, a loved one who constantly is abusing them, or who is constantly, you know, gaslighting them. You know, manipulation becomes the order of the day.
Yeah.
So let me just dwell with the term abuse for our listeners, and I think it would be quite guided in that regard.
Absolutely. Thank you for that. Jude, you know, what has made you just bold enough to come out and share your story? Because it's not easy. I know it's not something that is easy to do.
I wouldn't say I was bold enough before, but I shared my story 4 years ago, and then now the separation happened, officially happened.
Okay.
And when I shared it, it got a lot of reaction, especially on social media.
Okay.
And people would reach out and tell me that I'm going through this situation, how do I get out?
Yeah.
And I know we will dwell on how I got out at some point.
Yeah.
But I found that so many people are going through what I was going through, and the fact about abuse, it comes with a lot of shame.
Yeah.
When you talk about it, it's like it's shameful, and that's why you'd find so many people are still in those relationships and toxic relationships, because you do not want to. You do not want to experience the shame. Number two, you don't want to lose the title Mrs., especially for us women. You just want to continue being Mrs. So-and-so, but you're basically going through hell. So why I decided now to be bold about it is to tell people it's okay to talk about it.
Yeah.
It's okay. That's when you now actually start healing. When you talk about it, that's when you start healing.
True.
Yeah.
Doctor, is that true? That when you speak out, then that's the beginning of your journey of healing?
Sally, I love how June puts it, because abuse puts you in a position of isolation. It's the enemy's tact to isolate you.
Yeah.
In everything, you know, the enemy will always get power over you through isolation. And so one of the quickest wins for our viewers and listeners this morning would be, you need to speak out. You need to speak out. You need to speak out, you know, to a trusted friend. You need to speak out to a church community. You need to speak out, you know, to a therapist. These are people who can help you out. But that is where your healing journey begins. Okay. Though it takes quite a huge toll on you to put that first step forward of saying, you know, I'll speak about this. Because as she said, there is a lot of shame. There is a lot of guilt. You know, in our African society, marriages are upheld as, you know, sacred institution. And how do I say that I am going through this? Our society was for the longest time skewed, you know, to support the guy.
Right.
All right. It's always skewed. Right now, because of education and a lot of other factors, we are seeing that change. So yes, it is true.
Okay.
Yeah.
June, how was it like? You know, was it what triggered this person to just decide? You know, I'm gonna hit her. I'm gonna insult her. How was it like? You know,
I don't think I would say we saw it coming. It just started. Like, I think when you have a lot of anger in you just brewing, where you're not resolving issues, like when you're married and you're just sweeping things under the carpet all the time, you're not resolving stuff.
Yeah.
So I just remember, like, one day him stepping on me. I think we fought and he stepped on my tummy. So I got my child via CS, and so the wound kind of opened up. So they had to rush me to hospital. I was okay. It was just something tiny. And from there, it kind of escalated. So we never really dealt with our issues. We just kept on sweeping them under the carpet. And I'm a talkative, so you hit me and I'll hit you back. I even tell my friends that I used to throw sufurias because I'm short and he was very tall. So if you hit me, I also throw sufurias at you. I used to throw sufurias at him. But yes, that's how it started, as a subtle way, as emotional abuse first. The silent treatment, the speaking bad words to each other, including myself, because I take accountability. I've gone through a program called Divorce Care in Nairobi Chapel, and I learned about accountability, that it takes two to tango at the end of the day. It takes two to make a marriage work, and it takes two to break the marriage as well. So yeah, so I would throw words at him, he'll throw words at me, we'll do a lot of silent treatment. And when you're in such a toxic situation, it now escalates to the physical part, because maybe you've been so, you have thrown it words at each other, now you have nothing more to say, now it's time we now do this physically. So it had gotten to that point.
Yeah, but I'm just wondering, were you, like your personality, are you an aggressive person, or this guy just brought out the worst in you?
Yes, I'm an aggressive person. Okay. I am an extrovert, a complete sanguine, and he was the opposite. The opposites attract. Yes, so but I would say I also pushed buttons at some point. So when you push buttons and we couldn't maybe talk anymore, that's when the first incident happened of him stepping on me, and then now it escalated from there.
Dr. Speak to us about the cycle of physical abuse, because I'm sure there's a cycle. Is there?
That's a beautiful one. One cycle that I've noted, particularly with abuse, is there is tension. So allow me to use June's an analogy where, there was a lot that was building up. And so we experienced a lot of tension.
Right.
And then after the tension, there is an explosion. And in this explosion, it's characterized with a couple of things. There is the physical, now abuse that might happen. There might be, a mental element to it.
Yeah.
I'm reminded of a time, there was someone who was slapped.
Yeah.
And this someone said, yeah, you have slapped me.
Yeah.
And one thing that came clear is there was shock, all right, confusion. Then you are clothed with fear.
Yeah.
All right. And the last piece of this cycle is honeymoon phase. So afterwards, this guy becomes again rosy, says, pole sana, I will not do this, ni shetani, all these other things that we tend to blame, we throw it inside there. Ni shetani, I don't know what overcame me, and they become good. And what that ends up happening is the lady is put into emotional confusion with hopes that he will change. He will change. And so the cycle begins again. Tension starts building at some point. Honeymoon phase ends. Even for the lovebirds, who are tuning in, honeymoon will always fade off.
True.
And then the reality checks in. So, and then the tension begins. And this is a cycle that I get to see.
Oh, wow.
Yep.
June, is that so? Is that what happened?
Yes. As you were speaking, the honeymoon phase would be there. I think our honeymoon was more of going to speak to people in our church.
Okay.
Yeah, because we'd go and speak to them. I told you, need to do this, need to do that. We make up, then the cycle starts all over again. So it was still a cycle. Yeah. Yes.
I love what you're saying. You were in church at that time?
Yes.
Did you get any help from church?
Kinda, I would say kinda. Yeah. Why I'm saying kinda, it's also because on our end, again, the shame, the guilt, when you go to church, you don't talk about everything. You just say we have communication issues. But basically communication issues is that we are fighting physically, but you can't tell your pastor that. It will feel bad. How are you guys fighting physically? So even after our marriage broke, that's when now our pastor came to know what you guys were actually beating each other. Like, it was mangumi, ilikuwa mangumi. But so we didn't open up enough. I wish we had, but it was the shame that came with it. We're like, no, we cannot be telling our pastor that.
So when you're out there, you used to just portray yourself like this perfect couple. You look good.
Yes, marriage goals.
You knew?
Yeah, marriage goals.
Oh, wow.
We knew how to fake it. Yeah. And most couples do that, especially in toxic situations.
Yeah.
When you get out of the house, faking it is the order of the day. But when you close that gate, go different sides.
People admire and they want to be like June.
Yes.
And then when that happens, they're like, what?
Yeah.
They never saw that coming.
Yes.
At what point then did you now decide and say, no, this is not safe for me anymore? What was your turning point?
So what happens, I didn't get like an epiphany, like where people like, no, now I need to leave.
Right.
like when people in such kind of situations, you're told all the time. Because apart from maybe our church not knowing what we were going through, there were people in my circles, my friends, who definitely knew what was going on. And they would tell me, June, you need to one day, one of you is going to die. One of you is going to die. Because it was very bad to the point our daughter used to come to separate us.
Oh,
like,
wow.
like literally separate us. And that caused trauma to her as well. Yeah, which we can discuss as well. But yeah, so as in, I never got that point where I now wanted to say I wanted to leave. But one day, I saw some certain texts on his phone, and it was a case of adultery. And I think that was my wake up, like it was my, like that now that epiphany, like now, okay, June, what's going on? Bado na chapwa, and also this is also, is also happening on the side as well. So that was my wake up call. Otherwise, if that wouldn't have happened, I keep on saying one of us would have been in the grave, because it was really, really bad. So I didn't leave because of the physical violence. It's actually this that triggered, and I thank God for that, because if maybe that wouldn't have happened, I don't know where I'd be right now. Maybe I wouldn't be here.
Wow. Dr. So in such a case, there's even a child involved. The child is also seeing this kind of violence and abuse. What is the impact of that on her emotionally, psychologically, you know? And she was young. I mean, she's 10, so even then she was even younger. What's the impact of that on a child?
So the impact of that is quite detrimental, because this child grows up, not unless God intervenes in such a situation, and I mean extensive therapy, that child grows up with trust issues. And today we have seen various ladies in our society here in Kenya today who have serious trust issues.
Right.
And when you dig deep, you know, some of them come for therapy, and you realize the issue stems from that grassroots level of their family involvement. Maybe they were seeing their mom getting beaten. Number two, attachment styles. So we have relational attachment styles. The best is actually secure, where we find our security in Jesus Christ. And you know who you are, and you're working on yourself becoming a better person. But then you'll get to see some level of anxiety, probably anxious attachment styles. This child might experience, you know, moments where they're having sleep issues, grades that are, you know, zinashuka to, they're dropping excessively. And when you get to go to the core of things, you realize it's actually this child trying to process what was happening. God's design of marriage is quite interesting. He wants marriages to thrive. And his biggest advocates are actually the children. And that's why it's hard for a mom to move on, because the child will always advocate for the dad. They always have that God element of trying to put things together. And so when that doesn't happen, there is confusion that happens in the life of this child. And it's going to be, you know, anxiety, and to some it gets to a level of depression, I would say.
Wow. June, did that happen to your baby?
Yeah, it was bad.
And how did you manage that as well?
So what happened, I remember one day I was called to her school. So I just got a phone call from her school. At that particular point, I think we had separated. It was just a few days to the separation. And I was called by the teacher that, can you please come to school? There's a serious issue we need to talk about. So I just thought it was something about grades or just something. So the school she goes to, they take child welfare very, very seriously. So they were like, number one, your daughter has been talking about what has been happening in your home, about the fights. So are you guys still together? I was like, thank God we're still not together, because they were ready to take my child away from us.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it had reached that point. They were ready to take my child away from us. So I'm like, okay, so you guys are no longer together? We're like, yes. So she also had to enroll in therapy in school. So there's a therapist in their school. So she had to go through that. Her grades already started slipping. At some point, she had already started wetting the bed. She was 6 at that point. The last time she had wet her bed was like 2 years. So like she had kind of retrogressed. And yeah, she used to like cry continuously, like really cry. So she went through a lot of therapy. I thank God for that. In school, and also where I used to work at that particular point, I also enrolled her for more therapy. And I think right now she's better, although she keeps on talking about, she definitely misses her dad. Like when she was born, her dad was there, and she knows her dad. So there's still that gap, which I definitely cannot feel. I'm just her mom, right? So there's still that, and there's still the like she's in a phase right now where she's struggling with friendships, and she's like, oh, it's maybe because my dad left, that's why I'm struggling with friendships. So it is still a process.
Exactly what Dr. is saying.
Yeah, so it is still parenting like this is kind of hard. Just taking the grace of God. The grace of God is sufficient.
Amen. This morning we were discussing about physical abuse in marriage when love turns violent, you know, and just before the break, June, you were talking to us about your child going through all this, seeing all this, but you still held on, you still stayed on. Why?
I was brought up by a single mom. He was also brought up by a single mom. So we bonded on that. Yeah, I think the time we met, that was one thing we kept on discussing about, that we wouldn't want to split up and our child to go through the same cycle, basically. So, and like look at it right now, the way things work out. But yeah, so that's why we stuck together, because even at some point we had even separated. 2 years we stayed apart, and then we got back together again. And that was the same story, that we were coming back together for our child. And our child was actually very happy when we got back together for the second time, but now it even became worse. So why we stayed is because of that trauma, because we were like, yeah, I don't want my child to be brought up by a single parent. Yeah, so that was the main reason.
Doc, I don't know if I'm hearing right, you're the expert. Is there trauma bonding there? And also, the other question would be, why would someone just stay and they're going through such an abuse in their relationships?
Wow. What I hear from this story for June, it's a classic example of, you know, two individuals who have experienced trauma meeting and saying we want different. And in their hearts of heart, they really want different. And so what ends up happening is they'll say, we don't want to make the mistakes our parents did. And therefore, there are a couple of things that we can share notes. Wako walikuwa wanapigwa, ndio, tutakuwa tunapigana, you know. And it can go on and go on and go on. So yes, this is a classic example of trauma bonding, where trauma pulls two individuals and makes them think that it is love, but it's actually your experiences that you get to share. And yes, there might be some sense of love, because you'll see and say, you know, I like the way he smiles, you know, I like the eyes. In fact, my kid will have, you know, beautiful eyes. You know, he has a good heart. You know, he loves the Lord, he serves in church. Church is a big hospital. I'll talk about that in a later show. Anyway, and your second question was,
why would you just hold, you know, keep on hanging on in there?
Wow, that's quite an interesting question, because a lot of ladies actually hang on, and they hang on because this individual, again, remember the cycle, always promises different. This individual might, you know, be a key manipulator, knows how to play around with your feelings. Living is the hardest thing. Our dear viewers, living is one hard thing for a lady to do. I know we as the society looking in, we say, you know, jump ship, talker. All right, leave this situation. It's not doing you any good, but it's one of the hardest things. For example, now in June's case, the child was involved, and she said, you know, I want this child to experience what it feels to have, you know, a whole family. All right? And sometimes those are the things that we latch on, and we are just clutching on straws. Because indeed, will it change? We see her situation whereby she went back, you know, 2 years passed, and she went back into that, and the cycle was the same. What would trigger that? It's these little things that happen, you know, and the manipulation and the emotional tact that this person might employ, you know, they hold a bigger power, you know, to say, no, I'm the one bringing money. So,
Right.
you know, I'll ensure the child goes back to a good school. I'll ensure that you have a good life. Just come back. Yeah.
And you know, when you talk about that, I'm the one who does this and that, and that's why probably women, we hang on in there, we stay in there and say it's for the children. Is that even right?
Well, that's not right, but that's the situation in our country today. A lot of marriages, I'll tell our dear viewers and listeners, have already broken. There is a lot of marriages. There are some who are actually driving this morning and listening to us, and their marriage is actually broken. And the lady knows. And so she is hanging on for the sake of the children. For the sake of the children.
Yeah.
And that's why we are seeing a lot of people, you know, experiencing divorce later in life. And you're wondering, you were together for 22 years. Why divorce him?
The children.
But they already divorced when they were 10 years in marriage. She was just hanging on for the sake of the children.
Right.
She was just hanging on because she felt, I really don't have any other thing to do. I'll just latch on. And when the time is right, I will leave.
Okay.
Children really are a big part of marriages, especially to the lady.
Okay.
Because she is the nurturer.
Wow. Okay. June, so
Yes.
you here you are, you got the, you know, the strength to leave this relationship. How was your healing journey immediately after you left? How was it like? Your support system? What did you do immediately after you left?
So it was tough. When we talk about it in the two phases, so
Yeah.
the first time we fought, very big fight, we separated. At that particular point, I went back to the world. It was around 2018. I'd given my life to Christ in 2015.
Yeah.
So 3 years later, I was like, God, if you cannot even work on my marriage, cheers.
Yeah.
So I went back to the world, went back to partying, got into a number of relationships just to try and numb the pain.
Yeah.
And when I would even get into a relationship, I would even tell the person, I'm looking for marriage. It is not a fleeing or what, no, it is marriage. So you'd find men would flee because they are not,
Yeah,
they
yeah.
would flee immediately. So, and I think that is why even we got back together, because I was like, weh, hapa nimechapwa character
Hapa nje.
development, hapa inje, it is the ghetto, it is the
Yeah.
ghetto. Let me go back to that person who was with me for
Better
all
the
those
devil, you know.
Yes, better the devil, you know. And that, imagine that is how we got back together. And then it was COVID time. We found ourselves in the same house. So even after we got back together, then again the relationship went down the drain. So we actually got like married legally. So when we got back together, I was like, God, now I want to do this the right way. But now it lasted 4 months after the marriage, after the wedding. It
Wait,
lasted
you went
4
back now, it is when you had a wedding?
Yes, yes.
Oh,
yes.
okay.
After being together for like 10 years.
Okay.
Yes, but now after the wedding, it only lasted 4 months.
Wow.
It was very bad. No, it was even worse. Yeah. So at that particular point, now I already knew how I dealt with it before was not what I wanted to do.
Yeah.
But now I slipped into depression. I was in a lot of pain. Yes, I had my support system, but again, there's a difference when you're in this side and you're dealing with people who are married or single people. It's just completely different. You tell them the pain you're feeling and they do not quite understand you. So I remember one day our pastor just sent me a video from Nairobi Chapel about this program called Divorce Care, and that is where I found my community. So like around 2 to 3 months after the separation, I joined this program in Nairobi Chapel called Divorce Care. And people would speak stuff now I can relate with. Like I can relate with the pain of a marriage breaking. I can relate with children going through trauma. I can relate with the financial issues that come with divorce and all that. And I have been there since 21 up to now, because we still have that community where we encourage each other. I even became a facilitator because I was like, now I want to give back. Because it was given to me and I got my healing. Now I want to give back. So the community is still there. And so far so good. At some point I also went through therapy. So I was also doing divorce care and therapy at the same time, because I would get anxiety attacks, like panic attacks that I can't breathe. And I remember one night a friend telling me, you need to go to the hospital. So into the hospital, they just told me, now go and see a therapist. So I was doing both at the same time. It was that bad. It was that bad. Yeah. So that's how I dealt with it.
Doc, the importance of a support system, like what you had, a community, a support group. What is the importance of that?
That's a game changer for anyone who's going through such abuse, especially the victims. They get to really leverage a lot from that. I love the fact that the church is coming out strongly. I've seen the adoption of divorce care in various churches, and that's a good space because a church, as I said, is a big referral facility where everyone who's ailing, including the pastors, get to find shelter. All right? And you realize that, you know, abuse happens to anyone and everyone. And therefore, creating that sense of spiritual support is a good thing, because especially for us believers, we tend to say exactly what June said, you know, deuces, God, you know, this didn't serve me. Allow me to ingia kiwanja kidogo, see how the grounds look like, all right? So unaingia kwa kiwanja, you realize, hey, things are tough. So let me go back. So the spiritual support is actually very, very good. Allow me to speak to spiritual men, particularly pastors, and I know they're tuned in. Please create an environment where people can come and say, today nilichapwa kofi.
Correct.
Leo, he abused me. And they can really be vulnerable. There is something that's creeping in our churches as well, suicide. As you hear, some of the presentations that she got to experience were, she started getting panic attacks. I mean, anxiety was brewing in, so there are panic attacks. She can't breathe. Chances are, depression checked in, she mentioned. After depression, what's the next stage? It's always suicide. Then you're wondering, how? Why? How? We didn't see this coming. All right? I think we need to create an environment where our congregants can come and share out. Number two, you need a trusted friend. Search from your circle. Who's that one trusted friend that you can talk to? All right? Allow me to push this further, Sally, and say, for couples, please find a mentor couple, someone who's older than you. I know for most of us, we tend, during our weddings, we get, you know, those beautiful best men who can dance, bazokizo, and other styles, you know. Get someone who's mature and grounded in God, someone who can share their experiences and can help you resolve, whereby you can find help early. Prevention is better than cure.
Absolutely.
And so you're able to say, you know, today he abused me. It's not in his nature. I mean, if he abused you today, what do you think tomorrow he will do?
Chances are high.
All right? So a mentor couple, a trusted friend, a mentor couple. And number four, I'll say, seek out therapy. Now, this is what we tend to do as Kenyans. We wait until there is a problem for someone to come and say, by the way, I need help. All right? You don't really need to wait till things have boiled to the farthest. Allow yourself to seek out therapy. Even for us seated here, let's seek out therapy. Because it's a good practice to help us navigate through various issues of life and also self-discovery. This is one thing you will get to see. If you cannot value yourself, you know, your self-worth and know your value, you can't love yourself. You can't love yourself. And if I can't love myself, all right, the second greatest commandment, how will I be able to love this partner of mine in the way that God really wants me to? And that is what therapy gets to address. All right. So I've talked about, you know, various systems of support that you can plug in for anyone who's going through this.
Which I've seen June has actually plugged into, and I mean that's why she is where she is right now, I believe. So on the other side, the rosy side, have you started dating? Did you date after that? You know, how has it been, like, if at all? Did your past relationship affect how you went into probably dating, saying if at all?
I would say I tried. But I keep on telling God that I don't want a repeat cycle, especially us as women, we take our kids like very, very seriously. Like, I wouldn't want to take my child through that cycle again. I saw the way it broke her, the way our failed marriage broke her. So I just don't go on dates. I go on dates with a purpose. So I haven't really been dating per se, but I learned something through therapy and from the trauma bonding that we actually did, that I was looking for love from men instead of looking for love from God, right? So I've been in a season where I'm trying to understand God's love more. Before now, I allow a man to come into my life.
Correct.
So yes, so I tried dating, but I realized still
Not
trying to get
yet.
love.
Yeah.
You're still trying to get love from no. Let me understand God's love for me, his unconditional love for me.
Lovely.
Then I can allow this other person to come in.
Okay, wow, powerful. That's very powerful. Dr. Just wondering here, and I'm sure some of our viewers and listeners could be also wondering, like, what goes in the mind of an abuser?
The mind of an abuser is quite interesting. Well, I'm not a mind reader. But there's a couple of things that get to happen.
Yeah.
In the mind of an abuser, mostly you will find this is an individual who has also experienced abuse. One. Number two, this is someone whose self-esteem and self-worth has been totally bashed, and therefore the only way they can find fulfillment and assertiveness of me as a dominant man is by placing their hands on a woman or by throwing words at her, which would damage her heart and mind. The greatest battlefield is actually the mind, and the enemy knows this as well. And therefore, there are a couple of men out here who know, I throw this to this particular woman and I have totally destroyed her, whereby she becomes hooked or shackled to me. The mind of an abuser is quite interesting. It is a mind that is damaged. It's a mind that is seeking love, but doesn't know how to express love. Now, I'll say this to our dear viewers and listeners. If you are seeking love from somewhere else, rather from intrinsic and from God, this relationship, then there is a problem.
Okay.
When getting into a relationship, you're not bringing in 50, you're bringing 100.
Right.
Sally, when I'm going into a relationship, I need, and my dear viewer, I want you to understand this, that you are bringing 100%, not 50 of who you are. And that 100 can only be achieved if you have a great relationship with God. And therefore, He's able to expose your heart. Who knows the heart of mine? The heart of man. God tells us it's actually extreme, including ours. It's extremely wicked. And He is the only one who knows to the deepest part of our hearts. And He's able to say, today I want you to change this pride. Today I want you to deal with how you were brought up in that family setup. And He exposes you to a place where you take a journey with yourself and start healing. Only then can you find another 100% person and make something that will thrive. But we tend to think, pop psychology has taught us this, what are you bringing to the table? My 50%. And you bring your 50, then we make 100. No, it's actually 200% in God's design. So the heart and mind of an abuser is quite interesting. It's someone who has been broken, seeking assertiveness, someone who has been broken, seeking love.
Seeking love. Wow. June, speak to someone who is out there watching us, listening to us, and they're stuck in probably a situation that you're in, or even worse, and they're just afraid of getting out. Would you speak to that person?
Okay. To the person who's stuck in a toxic situation, who's been mentally, because we're talking about mental abuse, and also physically abused. First of all, you are okay. You are not nuts. Because there's this thing of like, maybe you're crazy. Whatever you're going through, you have caused it, right? So first of all, give yourself grace. Give yourself some grace. Number two, do you have someone you can talk to, a trusted friend? It might be in church, it might be a friend somewhere else, where you can talk to and just let it out. Because sometimes when you have this build-up of these emotions of anger and the physical and the abuse that you're going through, that's when the depression kicks in, that's when the suicidal thoughts kick in. And maybe you do not even have an option at this particular point to get out. Maybe it's even a financial situation and you're wondering how you're going to get out. Please find someone to talk this through. Number three, please get help. Please get help. The Mrs. title or the Mr. title, there are also men who are actually abused, right? The Mr. or Mrs. title is not worth your life. God does not want you dead. He wants to use you here on earth. So find help and find a way that you can actually get out.
Okay.
And yes, God hates divorce. That was thrown to my face so many times. He hates the process. He does not hate you as a person. He does not hate you as a person. It is the divorce he hates, but he does not hate you as a person. That shouldn't be keeping you in a relationship where you can actually die. And so many hugs from me, so many hugs.
Oh, wow. God hates divorce, but he doesn't hate the person.
He doesn't
I
hate
love
the
that. That's very powerful. That's quite powerful. Dr. You know, as we're just about to wind up the show, unfortunately, but I'm just wondering if you're to speak to family members, friends of someone who's been abused, what would you speak to them or tell them, like in terms of red flags to look out for? Because here is June and she's my sister, but I have no idea. What are some of the things that I should like look out for? And just say, this person is going through something, very briefly.
That's a beautiful one. I think the very first would be isolation. We get to see a lot of isolation in individuals who are experiencing this.
Yeah.
And it's also a tact of the abuser that they get to use. So they would isolate this person from family gatherings, family meetings.
Yeah.
So if you start seeing that trend, please reach out and try and find out what's going on. The eyes are the windows to the soul, and therefore you will find this person coming in. Yes, she's putting up a smile, or he is putting up a smile, because it can happen both ways. In today's world, we've learned that, you know, he's putting up or she's putting up a smile, but you can always tell sadness from someone's eyes. All right. Number two, listen to really hear. All right, listen to what this person is saying. In between words, there will be a lot of communication that is passed around. And I think sometimes we want to spend time with our family members, have fun, enjoy, but you're not listening to hear. You know, you're listening so that you can respond quickly. No, listen to hear. And this can also create a safe space for this person to share. Remember, this abused person is looking for a safe space. Sometimes they don't have that trusted friend. Sometimes they don't know what to do. Yes, things are cut out for us. There is the legal element, you know. Our police are always supportive, and I love and I really celebrate you know, our policemen, because they've really come strongly to support, you know, this and so there is that kind of care that can be found, but it's always hard to take that first step. And sometimes the family members are the people who get to help this person. So I've given you 2 or 3 thereabout, just to look out for.
Oh, wow.
Time. Time is the enemy as always. As always, what a beautiful conversation we've had. I'm still stuck, you know, still processing all this and really learning a lot as well. I just want to say thank you so much for your time, both of you, for coming in and just, you know, June, for you just opening yourself up to us and talking to us. And I'm sure somebody somewhere has been touched. I'm sure somebody will be asking for your contact. We'll share that, Daktari, you know. So asanteni sana for coming.
Asante for having
and to my viewer and listener, wherever you are up here, asante sana for giving us your time. I know there are comments and compliments coming in. Probably you have a tech problem somewhere, but I know we'll get that and we'll be able to share your questions with Daktari and June, you know, so keep them coming. Thank you so much for your time. Remember, Family TV has been here for the last 25 years with such impactful stories to impact different people, different parts of the world. This is how we've been able to do it, through your partnership, through your support. And so we urge you to keep on supporting us in whatever way that the Lord blesses you. You know, if, you know, from 1,000, whatever amount, I don't want to quote for you, but whatever God blesses you with, please, you may be able to send that to pay bill number 316 and the account number will be your telephone number. And also, if you want to be a partner, part of this great community, this great family that is impacting people's lives, you know, then you can send in your name to the word partner, to 20316, which is our SMS line, and also 0786316316 is our WhatsApp line. You can send the word partner and we'll be able to just talk to you, you know, and help us keep Jesus on the airwaves. Don't you want to be part of this amazing, successful ministry that we are running here? So God bless you and keep you. I remember next week, still here on Family Matters, we'll still be talking about another aspect of relationship, narcissism. You want to learn about that? Join me next week from Tuesday to Thursday for another lovely episode of Family Matters. God bless you and keep you. See you again next week. Bye.